Alright, just doing a quick hit here on Perryville. This is a Civil War Brigade series from the Gamers. Fairly small battle. The historical battle was one that was kind of inconclusive. Dean Essig really designed this game more for the optionals, the what if scenarios of, what if Bragg had marshaled his full army, what if Buell had his full resources available to him. The historical battle was inconclusive and disappointing for both sides. This was supposed to be the Confederates' invasion of Kentucky. They were going to control Kentucky and kind of change the balance of power in the West by moving boldly, and Bragg being Bragg. That's not what happened. Buell at this point, I think, had already been relieved of command, hence some weird command rules for Thomas, who was at the battle but had not actually taken command because he didn't feel it was appropriate or something, given that Buell had already planned for this campaign. But in this battle, no, Buell can't issue any orders until he gets initiative. Because he's a 0, he needs a 12. So until you roll a 12 on the dice, you can't issue any Union orders, which means every turn, essentially, you're trying to get initiative. Because the Confederates have orders to, and I'm on the 3:30 turn at this point, but the Confederates had orders, and they started down here along this road here, and here's the town of Perryville over here. But they started down here and filtered up to attack across here to the Union position, and the Union position was kind of along this ridge line here around the Widow Gibson house. So the Confederates kind of push in here, and then the right wing comes up across this ford here and up through these woods and attacks the Union there. And then the cav and artillery, I swung in along the road from the right, and they dramatically outnumber the First Corps that's defending there. And well, maybe not dramatically outnumber, but they do outnumber. They've got the numbers, they have the momentum. Although since this is the Western Theater, it doesn't mean that the Confederates are all vastly superior quality, but they do have a couple of A-rated brigades in there, which the Union does not have. I don't think, there's only one 3rd Corps brigade for the Union in Sheridan's division, which is over here, that has an A rating. So the Confederates have marginally superior quality troops, but they have the numbers here. I'm trying to place my camera in a way that doesn't have glare and or shadows. I have to get the lights highlighting the table from behind me, so that's why I've got a shadow over from the camera. But the Union position is weak here because you've just got the 1 corps. The 3rd Corps units are over here, and there were more back here. More on them in a second. And they have defensive orders. And so in theory they're in a good position, but they're outnumbered, and so the Confederates slammed into them. It didn't help that I got some bad morale rolls for the Union units. Some stuff routed off. You can see there's a routed guy back here, but there had been other routes that have since been able to rally and reform. But their position has been pushed back dramatically because the headquarters, which started somewhere around in here, got overrun. Which was kind of good in this case, because when a headquarters gets overrun, you have the option as the commander of doing an emergency retreat, which means everybody just has to retreat. You have a free turn to disengage outside of your orders, like a free retreat. So if you were under attack orders and your headquarters got overrun, you would be allowed to retreat instead of continuing the attack. You can satisfy a retreat movement instead of having to follow whatever orders you're under. So you can do that for 1 turn. So that's what I did. I was able to pull off the surviving units, which are here and these guys was able to disengage and pull them back. The Confederates have since closed that line again, and this is just a very strong Confederate line here. None of these units are lower than A at this point, I think, except these guys, and they're all A size-wise, not morale-wise. These guys are down to a B. But the only broken units, or the only wrecked brigades for the Confederates, I think, are these ones that had been routed back earlier. But there's still a very, very powerful Confederate force here, and not much. These guys are going to be wrecked probably in another turn or two. This is already kind of a stack of wrecked stuff, plus the headquarters there. These guys are routed. But I was able to get, I think the only other remaining functional First Corps unit is here, and they're poor quality. They're a C quality unit that had already been pushed back with a DG result earlier, and they're kind of working their way back up. But this is the 1st Division of the 3rd Corps here, and this is Schoaf, I think his name is. He was able to get initiative, and the only Union commander so far who's been able to get initiative, which is surprising given that Sheridan over here is a 3. He only needs to roll a 10 to get initiative. He wasn't able to do it. Schoaf needed an 11, which I got, and so he was able to get initiative, gave himself orders to move to the Benton and Mackville Road intersection here and support the 1st Corps defense. And he got there not a moment too soon. I mean, the Confederates were overrunning this position, and a perhaps ill-advised long-range fire from one of these units against, I think, these guys here ended up with them bloodlusted, and actually it was one of the Confederates that was forced to retreat. But bloodlust is good for close combat, so what I did with this Confederate, or this Union brigade here, was I charged into, and he was only 2 X's away, so I charged in and knocked back one Confederate brigade, and I think that was the guys that I moved here, this Jackson's brigade here. They got pushed back, and then he was able to keep moving and hit the one right next to him. He kept his bloodlust. When you do your morale check, if you roll under a certain amount, if you roll low, essentially you can keep your bloodlust, and which is good for close combat, because for close combat troops, especially the attacker, you're making your morale check at a -6 modifier, which is hard to manage if you're a B or a C rated unit. It's hard to not get some kind of result that could potentially push you back and break off the close combat. But he was able to succeed because he was such a large unit compared to the kind of bloodied Confederate brigades that he was fighting. He was able to win the close combat pretty handily and make the defender retreat. He was able to move here and do the same thing, or I think he came in over here actually, because these guys were up here just about ready to overrun the headquarters again. And he was able to hit another brigade in close combat in the same turn and force them back, but he did lose his bloodlust in that process. It rolled like a 50 or something that was high enough to remove the bloodlust. But the bloodlust essentially acts as a buffer to morale. So if you roll low enough, you can keep it. Nothing happens to you. If you roll high, where ordinarily it would have been like a DG or maybe even a rout result, instead you just take the bloodlust counter off, and he's essentially passes his morale check by sacrificing the bloodlust state. So this guy kind of saved the day for the Union position. They're able to form some kind of coherent line. This is still pretty weak over here, and these guys are going to get annihilated by 3, 4. Really, there's 5 Confederate brigades here that are going to be bringing their firepower to bear on those guys. But I kind of had to keep them there while I tried to throw together a line back here. But so this 1st Division of the 3rd Corps will be helpful. I don't think it's going to be enough to stop the rest of these Confederates, though, from pushing their way through and annihilating the rest of the Union position. But it will buy me some time, and maybe I can get some initiative rolls on these guys over here, or maybe even for Buell. I mean, for Buell, I got to roll a 12. He's issuing no orders until he gets to 12. At this point, even if he was able to get his his initiative and issue orders. It's almost better for these guys to get initiative themselves because they can issue and accept orders immediately, automatically. Meaning, if Sheridan gets initiative, I can write his orders and say, either attack the Confederate flank along the Mackville Pike or Mackville Road, or I could even try and say, send somebody down here to Perryville, because the Confederates have nothing back here. I mean, they've got one cav brigade and then the reserve brigade. Now, there were orders for one brigade in the left wing to defend the Springfield Pike, and I ended up sending them up there to join in the attack, which has produced fruitful results, but it has left things a bit open in case these guys get initiative. But my concern with them getting initiative was so low that I figured I could do it, because by the time they did get initiative, I could have this guy with orders to get up here. So those orders are coming on the next turn, and then I should be able to move this guy who's functioning as the Army Reserve up to Springfield Pike to defend any potential encroachment by the Union. But Perryville is worth maybe going after for the Union, because it's the only terrain on the board that's worth any victory points. So otherwise it's all just typical losses and stuff. So anyway, up to the 3:30 turn, the game ends at what, the 6 p.m. turn? Yeah, the 6 p.m. turn. So we've got 6 more turns, including the 3:30 turn. So lots of time left to see how this goes, and if the Union can manage to bring their numbers to bear and turn the tide of the battle at all. So we'll see.